Renee.
And I'm Gil from the Rich Relationships Refuge. I guess we should have said that at the very beginning before we just start talking like we know y'all.
I'm sorry that we act like we know y'all, but we really do feel like we know you all. We appreciate all of your comments that you guys leave in the comments. We appreciate the way that you guys are being a part of this community, leaving your what you want and what you need and what you like and what you don't like. So thank you.
You know, and just like the comment said, even if you are married, we like to talk about things that are relevant to even married couples as well, because even though we've been together 35 years, going on 35 years this year.
We're still trying to get ready for marriage.
You still, I wouldn't quite put it that way, but you still always got to be working on your marriage. That was always something, if you heard anything that we've ever talked about, that was something that was told to us early in our relationship, that if you just want to have a good marriage, you just got to work on your marriage. But nobody really tells you what that work really is. And that work really starts with you, the individual. And it's going to continue throughout the lifetime of your relationship, whether you're married, single, looking, or almost down that aisle. It's still something that you're going to have to work on no matter what. So that's what these Friday night sessions are all about. We used to talk about going on date nights and things like this. So y'all on a date with us, because this is the kind of stuff we do. Even when we call ourselves having date night, we end up talking about relationships and talking about our marriage and things like that that are going on in our marriage, because that is a part of what it takes, even in a relationship.
And so I want to ask you all, if you are married, do you believe that you have it all figured out? Because I can say that even though Gil and I have been together since we started dating when we were 18, we've been married since we were 21. I believe that if you remain a student of anything, there's always room for you to grow and improve. And I think that unfortunately so many times we think because we've been doing something for a long time that we're an expert or we have it all figured out. But how many of you know that you are constantly growing and changing and becoming a better version of yourself? So if Gil is still dealing with me or interacting with me based on who I was when I was 21, that girl is gone, y'all. She's gone. And that guy that was 21 years old when we got married is gone. And so it's just important that you remember that even if you're married, that this information, that our channel, that the things that we're doing is designed to strengthen marriage and to help people thrive in relationships. And so I want to add something we've been looking at in our channel. And one of the things that we are really grateful for, we're growing. You know, we're seeing growth, we're seeing comments, we're seing subscribers, and we want to give a gift to our 1,700 subscriber. And Gil, you want to say what their name is?
No, go ahead.
The name of our 1,700 subscriber is the McKinney Family Life. So McKinney Family Life, we have a gift for you. Please,
Mackenzie.
Mackenzie. Mackenzie.
Mackenzie.
The McKinney Family Life. We have a gift for you. Thank you for being our 1,700 subscriber. We are going to be giving gifts to our subscribers. We're not going to say what the number is because we want you guys to be involved, but we're going to give a gift this time. We gave one to our 1,400. So for our 1,700 subscriber, we have a gift for you. Please reach out to us at Rich Relationships Refuge at gmail.com, and we'll send you your gift. Please reach out to us. We appreciate you. But one of the things that we noticed in doing all the background, we have people from all over the world. And it is humbling to think that people who are from other countries are listening to Rich Relationships Refuge. So just know that if you're a part of this community, you're a part of a well-rounded community. I want you to put in the chat where you're coming from and where are you from. We're both from Detroit, but we live in Alabama. And so please share with us where you are, where you're from, or where you're watching us from, and where you're from. We'd like for you to do that.
So I got a question. How did you actually come up? This is kind of an engagement, just a talk. We actually going to be looking, but we do have things that we're going to cover, I promise. But I just wanted to ask, because a lot of times, even before we do the lives, we'll talk, but we'll also set up things separately so this can be very organic. It's not rehearsed. It's not practiced. We haven't came up and say, okay, you say this and I say that.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't work that way. We are actually, this is organic. So I'm actually wanted to ask Renee, what was it that led to, are you ready for marriage?
Well, I think a part of it is that with our community, I look at the questions that people are asking. I had someone to send us a comment to say, there was someone, and I won't say their name, but they were saying that they're a wife in waiting. And I felt like I was really humbled by the fact that she was willing to come to us for that.
Okay.
And so I'm like, if you have women who are wives in waiting, I think it's best to learn how to be a wife from someone who's a wife.
Sure.
So I thought that would be a good topic. And so I also follow other people and I look at the questions that people are asking, and it's something that people want to know about. How do you become a good wife? Are you ready for marriage? And so you read in the comments here.
Oh, I was just looking at where everybody's from. So I see Indianapolis in here. I see Texas. I see live in Texas, but from Kentucky. I see that. That's
Wonderful.
Awesome. Cool. And as we go through, we're just going to be looking. So if I stop and start looking down, it's because we're trying to do both.
Right.
We're going to be talking, but we're also going to be doing in the chat.
And if you're watching this later on, put in the chat or in the comments where you're from, because we really want to genuinely get to know you and we want you to get to know us. And so this is a part of us doing it, because we feel like it's really easy to see someone in a video and feel like it's so together and polished that that's not a real person. But we felt like if going live and let you guys see just like this, we tried to
just like we were late with the setting.
And it didn't work, So I think a part of it in building relationships is understanding, is having realistic expectations. We don't expect for you guys to be perfect, and so we hope that you won't expect for us to be perfect, because the purpose of this community is to help us to grow and thrive in relationships, and that's going to happen from us asking hard questions. It's going to happen from us talking about topics that may be a little bit uncomfortable. Last week we even talked about menopause, and so if there's any question or thing you want to know, put it in the chat, put it in the you can actually put it in the comments, but you could also send us an email at richrelationshipsrefuge@gmail.com, because sometimes people want to remain anonymous, and we want you to be able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for telling us where you're from. Continue to do that. And so
I wanted to jump in, because one thing that we always have been doing since we have been working with couples for 18 years now, is we realized early in our ministry, if we want to call it that it's very important of knowing assessments. We're really big on assessments when we work with our couples. And the reason being is it's important to know where you are when you're in a relationship, about to start one, or have been in one for a long, long time, because you are always constantly evaluating and reevaluating and relooking at and learning and changing in the relationship as it grows. So it's really big to be in relationships, but also understanding that there are going to be some changes that happen. And even if you've been married, just like someone said in the comment already, that they've already been married for a while, that's what tonight is actually we're going to be talking about, as far as, are you ready for marriage? And there's some things that we're going to actually pose as questions, but give you some background on when it comes to 5 signs. Are you ready for marriage? The do's, and 5 signs that you may not be ready. And then we're going to actually give you some actionable things that you can take away from this, because you may have to develop new habits even while you're dating before you go ahead and make that long-term commitment to get married.
And I think it's important to understand that there are things that you have to do as an individual to be prepared for marriage, because the other person can't make you prepared.
No.
So I think that it's important, even if you are married, these are still things to just go back and check and to look at and say, well, man, I used to do that. I don't do that anymore. Mm-hmm. So it's never too late to go back to what made you successful and to continue to add on to that. One of the things I want to do, because we always start off each episode with a kiss. And
I'm sorry.
So. And so you want to make sure we start.
That's because we are late with the setup.
So I think it's just important that, just like that, there are habits that we have established as a couple over the years that have helped us to be mindful and to be kind to each other. And something as simple as, not getting too busy to do the things because what it takes to get the person, it takes to keep them. Mm-hmm. And so we just want to remind you of that. So one of the things that I thought was really important was, everybody doesn't want to be married. So if you find yourself, you say, I don't want to be married, that's okay too. So we're not trying to say that marriage is for everybody, because marriage is not for everyone. Some people have the gift of being single, and that's the gift. And you know that that's your gift, and sometimes the way you find that out is over time. So don't feel if you feel that being single is your gift, enjoy your singleness, because it's really about you fulfilling your purpose. And if you can fulfill the purpose that God has for you without you being married, then praise God, that's a blessing. And if you know that the call that God has in your life requires you to have someone else to do it, then be open to that too.
So we're going to jump in and get started. We were talking about it before this session. Do we want to give the good first, or do we want to give the not ready first? And we were going back and forth.
So we let you guys tell us.
So if you want to be, are you ready? Put a 1 in the chat. If you want to be, you may not be ready, put a 2. So we're going to look at that, and the first person that responds a 1 or 2, that's where we're going to start. So anybody, just put a 1 or 2, because we'll go with either one. A 1. All right. So I like that, because you know why? I voted for, are you ready? You know, I would rather start it out with the things that you are already ready with.
And me, I was like, let's start off with, you ain't ready.
So we're going to start with the very first one. So are you ready? Number 1 of are you ready for getting married is being emotionally mature. You know, I think about when I say emotionally mature, I didn't learn this, or I didn't learn it. Renee already had it, but she had to teach it to me. I didn't learn it till we were later in our relationship as far as being emotionally mature, because I was not really emotionally immature, but I wasn't where I should be as it pertains to being in a marriage. And one thing that I had down pat as far as the 2 emotions that I could really express really, really well, like I think most men, I won't say all, but I'll say most, is lust and anger. Those are 2 things that we can just go and we just naturally fall into it, because if we're mad about something, you know it. If we are in a lustful state or a very physical aroused state, you'll know it. You know, so those are 2, but one, even in our relationship, Renee was really instrumental in helping me identify some of the other things and other emotions that we as humans, as men, have that we may not be as tapped into, that can really have an impact on our relationship. Like as far as being being vulnerable. When I was vulnerable, or I was apprehensive or nervous or fearful about something, it wasn't very easy for me to express it, but Renee kind of sensed it, and she would really help me identify what was it that I was feeling, and that comes from communication, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. And that was something that was very, very instrumental in helping me identify my emotional maturity.
And one of the things we have on our website at richrelationshipsrefuge.com, we have an emotional intelligence test. So if you want that, you can again send us an email. We'll send it to you, because it's really important that, you know, we can't do all that in an hour, but we have so many tools that are available that are free to help you to become the best version of yourself. And so that's on the website. If you want that, go to send me an email. I'll send you the actual emotional intelligence test. Because I think sometimes we don't realize that our emotional intelligence says a lot about how we are going to navigate relationships. I'll give you an example of when I knew my emotional intelligence had grown. I was the kind of person that if I knocked something over, oh my gosh, I would go through the roof. I would just be so mad. It's like, wait a minute. And the Lord started showing me, He said, that's inside of you. That has nothing to do with what's in the cup. And so the way you learn to navigate and understand your emotional intelligence, that things that bother you, that are small, it really is not what's going on outside. I shared a video today. In my first book I wrote, In Tragedy Majesty, when I learned to control myself, everyone around me changed. So did I make them change? No, I changed. So emotional intelligence begins with you being aware of the things that everybody loves the word triggers. You become aware of what makes you go off. You become aware of what makes you get out of character. And so that's one of the things.
So in a simpler way, even put that in a practical sense, conflict. How do you handle conflict? Internally, just like Renee with knocking over the cup, or externally with somebody that may be your significant other, your husband, your wife, your partner, your friends.
Somebody in traffic.
Yeah. Yeah. So how do you actually handle those conflicts, and what is your normal response? A person that just flies off the handle when something happened that had nothing to do with that individual, they were just the recipient of that wrath, that may be a sign of emotional immaturity, which is going to be coming up later. But this was one we are talking about. You are emotionally mature and able to handle that.
Yes, and that's important.
Yes.
And it's attractive too.
Number 2, shared values.
And you know why shared values is so important? Because first, in order to share values, you need to know what your values are. And if you don't know what your values are, then that means you're going to take on the values of the other person. But then when you really begin to grow and you realize, wait a minute, those aren't my values. Something as simple as us talking about, are we going to raise our kids to go to church? We're going to teach them about faith. We're going to teach them about having a relationship with God. Those are the kind of things you need to know for yourself so that you come together and you talk about it. But it's important that you as an individual know what your values are.
And I think about that when we first started out, that was something that we discussed even while we were dating. When you are dating is a preparational time for marriage. And that's where you can find out all the positives, all the negatives, all the values, all the core beliefs, and all those things that is going to lay the foundation for your relationship throughout the entirety of the relationship. Because if you are at opposite ends on the value scale or the character scale, that's going to cause a problem. So when you have those shared values, that is something that means that you have spent time talking, discussing, and coming up and understanding what the other person believes and follows, and how you line up with what they're talking about.
So I'm going to ask the question: what is dating? This is one of the things Gil, when he was a cop, he always asked the people he worked with, what is the purpose of dating?
When you think about it, if you're in a dating stage.
Yeah, so what is the purpose of dating? And that's one of those questions that we need to ask, because if my definition of dating is preparation for marriage, and his definition of marriage is just to have fun, and
you know what?
Then we're going to have a problem, because our definitions of the thing that brought us together is not the same. And so it's important that those goes back to those core values. It's important that you know what your values are, you know what your standards are before you get into a relationship.
Number 3, are you ready for marriage? Effective communication.
You should have known that was going to come on.
Everybody always talks about the communication in a relationship, how important it is and how vital it is and all those things. But we have come across couple after couple after couple who struggle in this area. So if you go into it knowing that communication is very, very important, why are you struggling with communication?
Well, I think a part of it is because people only think about the one part of communication, and that's the talking. And I think that talking comes easy for most people. Even introverted people can talk. Everybody can talk. Mm-hmm. But the most important part of communication is listening to understand. Not listening to respond, not listening to debate, not listening to change the person's mind. It's listening to understand. And so, but when we haven't been taught that, we think that I am a really good communicator. But are you a good listener? Because one of the things that Gil helped me with, because communication has always been the part of communication that's verbal was always my strength. But I learned that I've learned from him, because he's always been so calm and laid back. I learned that learning to listen was so important. And so he taught me the importance of not just being able to use my words, but being able to read the room, pay attention to what people don't say. And so in a relationship, you're both going to learn from each other. And so that's an important part, is seeing communication the way it is.
And the easy way to remember that is Renee's shirt. Be honest, open, and transparent. That is a foundational principle for effective communication, because if you're doing those 3 things, it's going to make the conversation naturally flow in its natural order, because the honesty part is just you talking about how you really feel. If a person or your partner has to guess, you're probably not communicating very effectively, because they shouldn't have to wonder what you think and what you want and all those types of things. There's nothing wrong with making your needs known, because that is vital to the communication process.
That's being assertive. And
we'll get to that one. Yeah. That's one of the habits, but we'll talk about that one.
You always do that. And something else I want to say is that we also have a communication assessment. Mm-hmm. It's in our workbook, but if you send us an email, we will send you the communication assessment, because it's not just to understand your communication. It's talking, it's understanding it, and it's talking and listening, but it's also knowing your communication style, because sometimes couples may have the ability to be good communicators, they may listen well, but if your communication styles are different, that could be another obstacle to your communication. So again, send us an email at richrelationshipsrefuge@gmail.com, and we will send you the communication assessment.
So I appreciate, is that Renee actually putting in the notes already? Emotional maturity, you see it right there, shared values, effective communication. The next one is pretty important. It's probably one of the top 2 reasons why you know you may be ready for marriage. Financial stability. This is the practical side of things. Now, we've been talking about the emotions and the feelings and how things go and all that, but you can best believe after sex, I would be willing to say money is going to be the number 1 reasons why people have issues in their relationship. So financial stability is not meaning you have made all the money that you're going to make and you're rich and you're well off and you're good to go and all those things. It means that you are financially responsible for what you do. We've said this before in some of our episodes. Before we got married, when I was single, I made enough money. I always had a job. I took care of my bills, but I would go buy junk, y'all. I would just go buy, I would hit that ATM machine like every other day instead of just living off a budget, because my needs were met and I didn't have any major bills or anything. But I would actually just go to the machine on a whim, just grab, and those little whim grabs, that 20, 30, 40, 50 bucks, it adds up. And next thing you know, you're living paycheck to paycheck. So Renee brought some of that financial stability to my life, because when we got together, we were already talking about some of those things about like finances and things like that was vital to our relationship. That's one of the signs that you know you are ready for marriage, when you're financially stable.
And a part of being financially stable means that you're also sensitive to the fact that one person may be better at it than the other, and that you are willing to share. That, I think that's a big thing, because you can be doing well, but are you willing to share your knowledge? Are you willing to share your resources? Are you willing to share the responsibilities of what it's going to take for you to become a couple, for you to become one?
Now, I got a question for you. Okay. This is totally off from what we're talking about, just to give you guys an idea of how this is what we really talk about. We get this question a lot, and I'll let Renee answer it. Is it good to have his money, her money? Even when you're married and you've been together for a long time. So how would you position that or respond to that if somebody said, I got my money, he got his money, and we're good? And that's being financially responsible and stable.
Well, the whole thing about getting married is being on one accord and being together. And if you have your money and I have my money, that's a really easy way for us to go our separate ways. So if we combine our money together, then that gives us a more commitment in our relationship. Right. So it should be ours. And I think that we learned this later on, that you should have an allowance and I should have an allowance. But all the money that we make as a couple should go together in one account.
See, and Sheena actually agrees with me. I like the way she puts that. Yeah, you have a joint account together. This is a strategy that works very, very well. You have a joint account to handle bills and things like that. This is just one way of doing it. Just like Sheena was saying, you have your money separately, so you can go out. I can go buy my CDs and my movies and all that kind of stuff. Whatever I like, she can go buy her purses and shoes and makeup and all that kind of stuff. And it doesn't take away from us together. So I think that's very, very important. So there is no one side of doing things. You have to figure out what works for you two together. So it's not that it's a wrong way to do it. It's the way that works best for you that's going to make you both financially responsible for it as a whole.
And the reason why I think it's good for you to put your money together as a couple and then you go out from there, because if one person is a spender and the other person is a saver, that can cause a problem too. Because I could be saving, you can be spending, but then when there's a need, I've seen couples, can I borrow $20 from you? I mean, come on now. We're sharing our bodies, we're sharing our lives, but our money is. So money separate. Can be a divider. And so it's just a matter of understanding that over the years of us being a couple and working with couples, we realize that if the enemy can't get your heart, he will get your checkbook. And so it's just important that in every area you realize that getting married means that yours is mine. Because guess what happens when you get married? My credit becomes his credit, and his credit becomes my credit. If I had good credit and his is bad, guess what happens, y'all? My credit is bad. So those are the kind of things you need to know when you are in the dating stage. You can just know.
All right, the last one. It's all about commitment, y'all. It's all about being committed and being dedicated. So you know you're ready for marriage is if you are ready to commit. It is the ultimate form of commitment and being dedicated. When I was a little boy, I wanted to be married. I knew that from even as a child. That was just something that I seen, and that's just something I want. I can't tell you why. We can go into a whole nother session of childhood of origin issues and parents divorce and all that kind of stuff. But I just knew I wanted to be married. And when that came upon me, I knew inherently that I only wanted one wife. So I had to be committed. And I also had to be dedicated to this person that I decided to spend the rest of my life with. And we made a vow at the very beginning of our relationship when we were still in the dating stage that we said, you know what? Divorce is not an option. We're going to put that off the table right now. And that was a level of commitment that we decided when we didn't know anything about this.
And we didn't even know Jesus.
And that's something that it may sound extreme, and it may say, oh, it doesn't take all that. And even as I look back on it, that said something that we are, to me, about us as individuals, but also as a couple, that we said, you know what, we're in this for the long haul. And we are going to be dedicated and committed to each other, which means we already are saying we're going to work on our relationship consistently and continuously. And that's the kind of things that we're sharing, just like with you guys here tonight. We appreciate it.
Yeah. And it's important to understand that you both have to be committed.
Yes.
His commitment is not going to work for me, and mine is not going to. We both have to be committed. Because if he's committed and I'm not, then that means he's dragging me. One of the biggest myths is that marriage is 50-50. Marriage is not 50-50. I bring 100% and you bring 100%.
Yep.
So sometimes I may bring 80 and sometimes you may bring 20. Yep. It's never going to be 50-50. You're a whole person, and you bring your whole self. And so you have to be committed to the idea of spending your life with one person and making the best of that and looking for the things that you love about that person, not just looking at what's going to be wrong, because it's going to be things wrong.
And even when you're discussing it and talking about these things, also look at what's happening. You may have an ideal. Don't ignore what you see. Mm-hmm. If you see a person that is lacking in the commitment side, pay attention to it. Don't ignore it, but mark it down as something that before you go and get one of these things, you may want to decide, that's an area that we may need to work on a little bit more, or that I may need to work on a little bit more. Because again, it goes back to what we said at the very beginning of this. You're always doing a personal self-assessment on where you are in this. So just to recap, the 5 signs that you are ready to get married. This list is not inclusive. It is not the only thing. It's a lot longer, but we just narrowed it down to these things
that are most important.
Being emotionally mature, and Renee put it in the chat here, shared values, effective communication, financially stable and responsible,
and committed
and dedicated. So those are 5 things to actually be looking for, especially if you're in the dating phase, at least as a framework or even as a guideline that you can use to gauge this person. Like, okay, I at least have something. You don't have to share it with them and say, okay, let's go through this list. But you can actually have that in your mindset, or even a point of discussion, even while you're dating.
And we're not saying that you should just have one of these. You need all of these. Because sometimes we think, he committed, or
he did too, or she got 3.
No, you need all of these things, because all of these things are going to give you a foundation that will be unshakable. If you only say, well, I got 2 out of 3, that's not bad.
Now, while you're a baseball player, that may get you in the Hall of Fame. That's not going to make your marriage.
Because marriage is a lifelong journey that you're going to be spending with another person that's not like you. And if you don't have all these things we're saying right in the beginning, it's going to be harder for you to build on. You're not having anything to build on. You're going to be building on a really shaky foundation. And so these are just the things we've learned that really make a difference. And there's more, but we just wanted to narrow it down to the most important.
So now let's talk about the other side. This is where you really have to be honest with yourself. We're going to talk about